997 prices are up by 25%, but prices might have peaked. Let me show you why. What's up YouTube and welcome to a new video. The 911 997 is immensely popular among 911 enthusiasts. It's often referred to as the last mechanical Porsche. Especially the 997.2 receives a lot of praise as it comes with the PDK box and it also features a revised engine. We did then also see in my previous market update that 997 prices were on a roll. Between April 2020 and May 2021, prices increased by 25%. Not as much as what we saw in the 996 market, but a solid increase nonetheless. In this video we will find out if the trend continued, but I can already reveal that there are significant differences between the model types and that this might mean that prices have peaked for the foreseeable future. But before we have a look at all of that, let me first give you an overview of today's market. Over here we have the model year versus price relationship for the US 997 market. This shows that the average price is $59,900 and that there are 331 cars for sale. We can also see that the 997.2 is significantly more expensive than the 997.1. The latter one has a median price of $53,500, whereas this is $73,500 for the 997.2. So on average the .2s go for a premium of $20,000. If we split the market by the model types, so the base, the S and GTSs, then we can see that there's a significant overlap between the market segments. Yet on an aggregate level there are some differences. Base models are the cheapest at $49,000. The S sits somewhere in the middle with $62,000 and the GTS is the most expensive at $96,000. Nothing extraordinary over here, but it does highlight that the price variability is large. I did some analysis on this and it revealed that this variability can be explained for 84% by a few simple factors. When we consider the model year, the mileage, the model type, the generation, the transmission type and the drivetrain, it turns out that the price is predominantly driven by the mileage, followed by the model year, the generation and the model type. The transmission and drivetrain have a relatively low price impact when you also consider all of the previously named items. That's key to remember here. So we're up to date on today's market now, and that means that it's time to have a look at the price development over time. And to keep things organized, we will first have a look at the high-level overview and then drill down into each individual model type. Over here we have the median price development over time. And this reveals that prices increased with 25% between April 2020 and May 2021. And this price increase is of course not unique. Many cars saw large price increases in this period. Yet, with 25% the 997 sits in the upper segment of the price increases. We can then also see that the trend lost a bit of momentum between May and August as prices only increased with 3%. Yet, more recently the price trend accelerated as prices surged with 7.1% between August and November. And this means that between April and now, prices increased with a stunning 39%. This price development might look familiar if you saw the 996 video a few weeks ago. The trends are namely identical. If I add the 996 to the graph, you can see that also their prices increased severely during 2020, then stabilized a bit and accelerated in the last 3 months. So now you might think, why on earth was this guy talking about peaking 997 prices? The price trend accelerated. And that's a fair point. But this price increase is driven by a specific market segment, the one for the S models. Let me show you. Over here we have now the median price trend split by model type. In orange we have the GTS, in green the S and in blue the base models. And the split reveals an interesting story. We can see that prices for the base and GTS model didn't move in the last 3 months. GTS prices saw a change of 0% and base prices even saw a decrease of 1.3%. Moreover, the price change during the last 3 months is not statistically confirmed for these segments, further reinforcing that prices stabilized in these markets. But this isn't the case for the S model. Prices over there increased with 5% and this price increase is statistically confirmed, meaning that it is unlikely to be the result of chance. And this is an interesting observation, right? Why on earth did S models continue to increase? And is there a specific market segment within the S segment which is driving the increase? We will now spend some time to try and answer those questions. First of all, it might be so that the underlying market composition changed. If, for example, the median mileage changed a lot in one of these segments, it might have affected the prices. We saw earlier in the video that mileage is a key price driver, so let's investigate some high-level market characteristics with the following graph. Over here we have the supply, median mileage and median model year development for the markets. And we can see that with exception of the mileage in the GTS market, changes are minor. Supply patterns look similar in all markets. We can see a big decrease when prices surged, followed by an increase and a small decrease. Mileage developments are similar for the base and the S models, while the GTS market saw a large mileage drop during the summer, something which helps to explain the large price increase during that period. Yet, in the last 3 months, the change was only minor. Looking then at the median model year development, we can also see very stable patterns. The one for the GTS market improves by 1 year, but other than that there are no significant changes over here. So this means that there are no obvious reasons which explain why the S market is on such a roll. And this also means that we need to look a little bit deeper into the data to see if we can find a meaningful explanation over there. Hence, we will have an in-depth look at the base and S markets to figure out if we can find which market segments are driving these prices. The GTS market is unfortunately too small to split up further. Yet, before we do all of this, if you like this video, please support the channel by clicking on the like button below. Thank you. You can also follow me on Instagram, it's @fourwheeltrader, and over there I mainly post updates on car markets in my stories. Now let's start by investigating the base market, and let's split the market by its generations. We saw in the beginning of this video that this is an important price driver. Over here we have this base market. We have the 997.2 in orange and the 997.1 in blue. And we can see that it are the 997.1s which are responsible for the price decrease in this market. Prices over here dropped by 1%, but this drop is not statistically confirmed. So let's say that prices remain stable. In the 997.2 market, we can see an increase of 5%, and this is the same as what we saw in the S market. As I mentioned before, the .2s are often referred to as one of the best 911s, so from that angle it's not surprising to see that prices increased the most for that generation. But the timing is perhaps a little bit strange. Why can we see right now a divergence between the two markets? They moved in parallel for a long time. Maybe the .1s just followed the .2s because of the used car market hype of last year, and people start to realize now that the price is no longer justifiable due to the car's flaws. But this is of course all speculation. Now one additional thing which we can still investigate here is if there's a difference between the manual and the automatics. Personally, I would always go for a manual when it comes to the 997.1s. So let's look at the base 997.1 split by transmission type. Over here we have now in blue the automatics and in orange the manuals. And this reveals that it are actually the manuals which drove prices down. Who would have thought that? Prices dropped by 2% in that market, while automatics remained more or less flat. But we need to think about this development in the context of the price history. Between April 2020 and May 2021, automatics and manuals moved in parallel. It's only after this period that the manuals continued to increase while automatics basically flattened out. Compared to April 2020, manuals did then also increase more, but they might have overshot their sustainable level last summer, as they decreased in the last 3 months. Now I would love to show you the same market splits for the 997.2, but the market segments become too small over there, meaning that the price trends are no longer reliable. So let's summarize what we just saw. I always try to present these videos in a structured way, but when you're just looking the video, it's often difficult to keep track of the numbers. Over here we have a table which you can read from left to right, and I hope that this helps you to keep track of what we're doing here. We started by looking at the full market and saw that prices increased in the last 3 months. However, when we divided the market by model type, we saw that this increase came from the S market. The base market saw a small price drop and GTS prices remained stable. We then zoomed into the base market and saw that the decrease is coming from the 997.1 market. The .2 market still saw an increase of 5%. We then also added the transmission split, and this showed us that within the base 997.1 market it were the manuals which dropped in price. The automatics remained more or less stable. And I guess this also revealed what's coming next. Right, we will dive into the S market. Over here we have the .2 in orange and the .1 in blue. And we can see that it are especially the .1s which pushed prices up in the S market. They increased with 7.1%, whereas the .2s increased with 3.6%. But that's perhaps not the most interesting thing here. I was mainly triggered by the increase over the full period. 997.1s increased with 46.6%, while it's only 31.4% for the 997.2s. And that's a crazy result for the .1s. I actually expected that it would be the other way around. This is again a bit of speculation, but perhaps the 997.2s always demanded such a significant premium that the upward price potential was more limited. If you read the various Porsche forums, you will find many topics in which the 997.2s are recommended over the 997.1s. So perhaps the 997.1s were discounted too much at the beginning of the price surge. Now, just as we did with the base model, let's add the transmission type split to see if there are differences between the automatics and the manuals. Over here I added the split and you can see that there are quite a few lines, but please stay with me here. The bottom two lines show the price development for the automatic and manual 997.1s, while the top two lines show the development for the automatic and manual 997.2s. And we can see now that during the last 3 months, all of the lines went up, with exception of the one for the 997.2 manuals. We can see a price decrease over there of 2.7%, and this is similar to the decrease what we saw in the manual 997.1 base market. But we need to be a bit careful with interpreting this price drop. Between May and November, the median mileage increased by 11,000 miles, and all else equal, the higher the mileage, the cheaper the cars. So part of this price drop can be attributed to the increase in the mileage. I did some further analysis on this, and this revealed that corrected for the mileage difference, the price drop only amounted to 1%, which in essence means that prices were relatively stable. And with that, let's summarize our journey a bit and go back to our table. We can see now that the S market saw a price increase, and that this goes for the 997.1 and the 997.2. Yet, the price increase in the latter market was a bit less. This results from a price drop in the manual market, which we need to interpret with a bit of care. Now there's still one more split to consider here, the split between the two-wheel and four-wheel driven cars. Now the split was a bit difficult to analyze due to some fluctuations in the underlying mileages, but corrected for this, this revealed that historically the markets developed in parallel. Yet, more recently, we can see that the four-wheel driven cars saw a larger increase than the two-wheel driven cars. The latter ones increased between 3 and 4%, whereas this is 7% for the four-wheel driven cars. Now before we wrap up, let's put the 997 price trend in a context. Even though that we can see the first price drops, prices have been really strong. Over here we have the price trends for the 996 and 997 Carrera base and S models and the first generation Audi R8 V8. Unfortunately, I don't have the exact same dates to compare the prices, but I think that this will do for now. If we look at the price development between June 2020 and September 2021, then we can see that R8 prices went up with 17%. And this is a rate which we've seen frequently during last year. However, in the same period, 997 prices increased with 24%, while this is 44% for the 996. And note that the latter score is the highest one I've seen on the channel. So when it comes to the price developments, the 997 definitely sits on the higher end. And with that, let's wrap up and conclude. Why might it be so that 997 values just peaked? Well, the short answer is that the market starts to show diverging price trends. Some market segments still saw a price increase, while others plateaued or even saw a price decrease. And this is significantly different from the situation which we were in at the beginning of this year. Prices were surging consistently in all market segments back then. This is simply not the case anymore, and it means that the price trend is losing momentum. Something which frequently, but not always, is followed by a more stable price development or even a small correction. And all of this follows from the analysis which we did. On an aggregate level, we saw that prices still increased by 7% during the last 3 months. However, this price increase comes fully from the S market. The base market saw a small price decrease, while the GTS market remained flat. We then drilled down into the data and saw that the drop in the base market was driven by the 997.1 market. Manual saw a price drop while the automatic saw a stable price development. On top of this, we could also see a small price decrease in the manual 997.2 S market. Now just to be clear here, I am not saying that this market is going to crash. Most of the price decreases what we saw were not statistically confirmed. So this means that the decrease might be a result of chance. It does however signal that the price trend is losing momentum, as we used to see a consistent series of statistical significant price increases. Hence, I think that 997 values might be close to or already have peaked for the foreseeable future. And with that we arrived at the end of this video. Now if you enjoy this data-driven way of analyzing car markets, but would have liked to see the analysis for a different car, let me know down below in the comment section for which car you would like to see an analysis. Also don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification bell so you get actually notified when your requested analysis goes live. As always, thank you for watching and I hope to see you next week for a new video.